Russia is closing its 4,000-kilometre Far Eastern border with China to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Other countries have suspended flights to China, halted road traffic and stopped Chinese citizens entering. The number of people who have died has now jumped to 170, all of them in China. Nearly 8,000 people have confirmed infections. A flight to return about 200 British nationals to the UK from virus-hit Wuhan has been unable to take off as planned. Robin Brandt has more from Shanghai.
Today was supposed to be the day they got out and away from this. The death's toll and the number infected continues to rise here in China. The city of Wuhan is the epicenter of the outbreak. But Britons are still stuck there because of bureaucracy.
We were really worried about the reports of younger and younger children becoming sick. And at the time they said it was fine, but when I received a call the next day, they said that only I could go and my son would have to stay. And which obviously was very devastating to hear.
English teacher Natalie's son can't go because he has a Chinese passport. Chris Hill has a similar problem. His wife and daughter have dual nationality.
Would you be willing to leave your family behind to go to safety? It's a very hard and moral question because my daughter's only 4 years old. So it's a very hard choice to make.
Other countries have got their people out. Japan and the US with the first of several planned flights. India and Australia are among those planning others. The Foreign Office said it is working urgently to resolve the problem for British citizens, with talks at very senior levels. Quarantine on a military base or an NHS facility back in the UK awaits. Fear about the virus spreading has caused scenes like this across all of China. Even in Hong Kong, which has now all but cut itself off from the mainland.
I queued for an hour and 10 minutes and bought 2 boxes of masks. We were running out of them at home. Hong Kong should act like Taiwan to stop exporting masks and keep them for the locals so that we don't have to queue for hours.
More cases are being reported around the world. In Italy, passengers on a cruise ship are being held on board because of 2 suspected cases among them. But the head of the World Health Organization had nothing but praise for China's efforts.
I will praise China again and again because its actions actually helped in reducing the spread of coronavirus to other countries.
Still, though, drastic measures are being taken here, far away from the worst affected area, to try to halt the spread. Office workers in buildings over 1,000 kilometers away are having their temperatures checked daily.
Let's get you the latest on some of the developments today. I'm joined by Sarah Rainsford in Moscow. Mark Lowen is in Rome. Sarah, first, the closing of that border is no small feat.
No, that's right. It's an extremely long border, more than 4,000 kilometres in the far east of Russia with China. And we now know that the Prime Minister has essentially ordered that key crossing points for pedestrian and for traffic across that border will be closed. We also know that all passenger trains, Moscow-Beijing passenger trains and freight trains will be non-stop between those 2 cities. So no people getting on or off on the way. There are other measures that have been taken as well. The foreign ministers announced that they will stop issuing electronic visas for Chinese tourists to come to Russia. They're also asking Russian citizens in China to register with the Russian embassy there so that it's clear where they are if there's a decision made at some point to evacuate them. For the moment, flights are still flying, but for example, here in Moscow, where there are Chinese tourists in hotels, there are now medics going to those hotels, checking tourists before they head out to the sites here to check that there's no symptoms, no signs of anyone having caught the virus and potentially therefore spreading it. So a whole series of measures in place, although the authorities here making it quite clear that there's no reason for panic. There are certainly no cases confirmed of the coronavirus here in Russia yet, but the Deputy Prime Minister has said that they are likely to happen. So those measures are now being put in place to prevent, as far as possible, the virus spreading here.
Let's go to Rome now. And Mark Lowen, we're talking about a cruise ship with, what, 6,000 passengers on board?
Yeah, indeed, Philippa. It is called the Costa Smeralda, and it has 6,000 passengers on board. It is now in port in Civitavecchia, which is about an hour away from Rome, but the passengers are not being allowed to disembark because there is a couple on board from Macau, and the woman, 54 years old, has had a fever and other potential respiratory problems that could suggest that she has contracted coronavirus. She is now in isolation. Tests are being carried out on her, and the results are expected later on today. The couple had flown from Hong Kong on the 25th of January to join the cruise ship, which then made its way to Marseille, Barcelona, Mallorca, and back here to Italy. It was due to go further north in Italy, but it's being kept in Civitavecchia while those tests are ongoing. We are told from the cruise company that there is no panic on board. Everybody's been told and made aware of the situation, but of course it is being held there in the port until the results of those tests are known.
Mark in Rome and Sarah in Moscow, thanks very much for those live updates.